And with that, a beautiful welcome to all of you who have gathered here today from Human Design Indonesia, from Poland, from Hawaii, from other places on this planet that unify us in this gene pool that we've created today, and this transauric form that is utilizing us for the transmission of, let's see what we bring through. I'm grateful for you, Travis, just to the connections that fractally bridged us together. And the Saraswati Temple Arts has always been a place for me that has been about learning the art of living in the temple of human form. And design is probably one of my longest forms of geekiness and focus and investigation. And it's really an honor to sit with you in this place and to share awareness and to be able to drop into whatever the conversations feel to be present. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
I'm curious, beyond what brought you here to Bali, but what brought you to design? And
yeah, first I just want to thank you for the meditation. It was really beautiful, presencing, and thanks everyone for being here and the beautiful invitation. We were talking briefly, just having tea, and I think Joe asked, what was one of your favorite invitations that you've had recently? And it was, first of all, to be in Bali, and second, to be here. So yeah, thank you for being here. What brought me to human design was a Bumble date. I'm a 1-3, and so to me that kind of means my body is really designed to bump into things, to bump into opportunities, to have spontaneous things happen that's going to change the course of my life. And early in my process, a lot of them were women, and going on dates, connecting deeply, and getting some piece of information that set me on a new trajectory towards more love of myself. So I went out on a date. We hit it off. We were having a great conversation, and she said, "Hey, let's look up your human design." Okay, that sounds cool. I don't know what that is. And the first paragraph I read about being a projector just shook me to my core. I've never felt seen in that way, and I knew in that moment that I didn't know I'd be here, but I knew my life was changed forever. And it just came through that spontaneous meeting.
And did you go straight? She was in design.
She wasn't really even that into it.
She was just.
It was just a fun thing for her. She knew a little bit, but she wasn't deep into the information at all. She sent me to this man's website, Human.Design. His name is Richard Beaumont, and I got to meet him earlier this year in Ibiza. And he had like a little mini report that you could get for free. And I read this report, and just like reading about me being a projector, it just set me down the rabbit hole. And I've been going for 6 years strong now. Yeah.
What was the biggest point in your life, like, that physically changed at that point? Was there something drastic that?
This is a really interesting topic, because I always tell people I got really lucky with living my design. I kind of was at a very rock bottom moment in my life. My business wasn't working out. I had just broken up with a girlfriend of mine. My health was at like an all-time low. I had gut issues. I had skin stuff going on. I was a hot mess. And when I read about being a projector, I realized, because I always thought I hated myself. I always had really low self-worth, not much confidence. I really thought I didn't like myself. And then when I read about being a projector and I saw my design, I realized I hate my not self. I hate trying to be everything that I'm not. That's really what I hated. And I didn't really even understand who I was at that moment. And that was kind of the first taste I got of you're good. You just do things differently. And yeah, it just went from there.
I remember when I first learned about this aspect of recognition and invitation, that there was this place in me that took that as realizing the things that up until that point I had been recognized for, and thought that those were the things that I needed to be. So I still tried to be recognized for those things until I started realizing that those were the things I was trying to do versus the natural points of recognition that just come naturally in being. And that was such a moment for me in my realization of, and still like to this day, 20 years later, of the still the points that come of thinking that I had to try to do something to be recognized or to be seen or to be invited into some place, and versus the things that where I just get to show up and I can just hang out and be myself, and the people that are around are in such gratitude for whatever that presence is bringing.
But there's no value in a life of ease and flow. It's hard work, and you know, that was my conditioning. I'm curious for you. You know, projector was such a big word for me. Obviously, like I feel like when most people meet human design, you get your type. You know, and to me, it's like that one word changed everything. When you saw your chart for the first time or understood what that really meant, did you resonate right away? Did it take you a while to get there?
I broke down in tears in my first reading because I had been kind of resisting my mother's influence of trying to share this with me for 3 years. My mother was one of Ra's friends in the kind of sannyasin community that was happening in Sedona. And she had just learned it, so she was sharing with me. I was fresh out of the military. She was trying to tell me things, and I couldn't receive it because it felt like new age. She was a reflector, so she was constantly telling me, I'm just reflecting back you and your friends and your environment. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And so when I had my first reading, which she gave me for my birthday, I just like, when he was talking to me, I was just like, tears just started coming out of my eyes. And because I felt so guilty for not receiving this long ago from my mother, but then also just like fully feeling all of the pieces that I had stacked on to this gentle, sensitive creature that I knew that I was inside, that I've been trying to avoid. And so it was big for me, but also as a 1-3, it was like, it took me a long time to like, okay, this makes sense. I just cried. I released a lot of emotions, but I need to check this out. I need to like feel the foundation of it and feel that this is real for me or not, because it felt real, and I kept on getting all the signs and the symbols that were making it look great, because it was quite a new thing, and it wasn't very popular, and people I would ask about it, they still like, I don't know what it is. And so it was really interesting at that point. I'm curious here, everyone, how many projectors are here in the...
We have more than, lots of projectors here. We have 1, 2, 3, and then also Daria, meaning 1, 2, 4. 4 projectors. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah,
and
4
generators or manifesting generators?
Yes.
How many are sacral generators? MG?
Yeah.
And others? There's no reflectors?
No.
Manifester?
No.
Pablo Manifester. Cool. One of the things that just came to me when you were sharing that is like, one of the things that I get met with a lot of time with clients or new readings is like, when we share type or a design, they feel like they're being limited. You feel like you're given this design. It's like, I'm not just that. It assumes that you're trying to take the human experience out of the equation. However, for me, what happened is I was able to understand a playing field a lot different, and understand how to be so radiant within that playing field that I knew I didn't have to fit into that playing field, that playing field, or that playing field. So it was like accepting the limitation first, and then understanding how to fully play within that aspect was big for me. And I'm curious of how you...
I think, again, that's why I say that I got really lucky when I was at a rock bottom meeting design, because I had tried for 20 years to do it a different way, and it didn't work for me. You know, I didn't reach like a crazy level of success, or I wasn't even at like an okay stage. I was like, nothing worked. I just burned everything down. So I think when I found projector, I was like, yes, let's try this because I have nothing to lose. And I feel like a lot of people that I work with, if they have a steady job or they have some responsibility or they have things that they've already built on top of that not self, it's probably a lot harder to take a major leap into trusting some system or information like this. Whereas for me, I was like, let's go. And that day I made a promise to myself, and the promise was, I know why my life isn't working out, because everything I'm doing, I'm trying to be someone I know I'm not. There's the truth inside of me, and I don't listen to that voice because I'm trying to be recognized in these other areas. So I got to a point where I said, if I wind up broke, alone on the streets, but I'm following what feels right inside, that will be a better life than me getting any type of success or recognition the other way. And I was able to honestly go there, and I fully expected I was going to be broken alone on the street, like I didn't have these grand visions like this was going to bring me anything. But I was able to get to that place and to feel the truth of, like, if I have nothing, but I'm honoring who I am inside, that life will be so much. It will be my life. It will be mine. And the life I've been trying to lead is not my life. I knew that. And that day I made that promise to myself. That week I had health problems that cleared up that I had struggled with for 10, 15 years. It was like the weight of the world lifted off of my shoulders, and this stress just left my body, and it's never come back to this day. And so it's I just got lucky because I said, let's go. And I leaped, and I'm a 25-51 anyway. So that's kind of how it happens.
You had that confidence that even if you hit and fell at the bottom, you're going to be able to get up and dust yourself off and keep moving.
I mean, Ross says what does he say? The warrior and the fool are pretty close, pretty close together. So I think that I'm blessed with that energy of my home sometimes is in that unknown place of, like, it's time to take another leap. And I feel like that's what I kind of help a lot of people with. They're on a major verge of transformation or not wanting to do a specific something, like they can come to me and I can give them a kind, gentle push to say, hey, it's going to be okay.
So we hear a lot about, like, the different types within design, and like projector, manifestor, reflector, generator, manifesting generator. And then we have profile, and profile is dominant traits of the personality and dominant traits of the design. And for me, this whole fundamental of this is like understanding that at one point we're one with consciousness, we're all whole, and we're in the great beyond. And then when we incarnate, there's two parts of that consciousness that come into two different parts within our body. So for me, I often consider this like the original wound of separation. Is when we first feel separated, is when we are born, take our breath, and we can see outside of this body, and we can see that we have a body, but there's still some piece that we're not understanding, that we're connected. So I'm curious for you, like in profile, just to share a little bit, like your view on profile as a costume, as a way of being. What's your way of looking at that?
Not as deep as that. That was, I've never heard it explained that way. I really resonate to that.
Because when we look at, like, our incarnation, and we understand that the design information is taken 88 degrees before our birth, we understand that all of the organs and all the development of this physical vessel, which operates on this plane of inertia, that's done. And then the third trimester, all of the organs and all of that is taking in information from the surroundings and understanding how it can function properly. And then at the time of our birth, then all of a sudden we take our first breath and we can actually see what's happening from a witness personality. And I think a lot of life, or my understanding of when I started learning design concepts, was understanding how to listen to the body, because that's what I've recently been kind of terming our native intelligence. That's what the native body, the one that lives on this plane, is like telling us, giving us information. And over years and years and years of conditioning, when we step on these things that we've been conditioned by other people to think, we start numbing out that native intelligence and doing things to desensitize what those signs are, what the splenic hits are, or what the emotions are telling us, or what the sacral really feels. It's like for most generators, you're talked out of the and to go into more polite ways of referring, say yes or no ma'am, or yes please, and all these places that get us into our mind to think. So it's just been a very interesting part of my study and understanding how these work, and then how profile kind of becomes an understanding of the different functionalities of, for example, my personality is a first line personality, so it likes to understand, it likes to investigate and get to the bottom. But my body is like, oh, that sounds good, mind, but let's try it out. Let's take the sledgehammer and knock the foundation and see if it works. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, oops, sorry, that wasn't so solid. I hope you have a good time building that one again. Sorry, didn't mean to. But just understanding that, because it's like Alok used to explain it to me, it's kind of like having a roommate that you don't know is there, and that is always leaving things out on the counter and leaving the toilet seat up, or like all these things that you don't realize that your body is doing, but your personality is like, who did that? And then it's like those things happening within the same vessel. So I'm curious of that costuming.
Yeah, I have a memory through some other modalities of like before I was born, this feeling of just not wanting to come out, not wanting to breathe air, like being very comfortable in the water world, you know, and feeling so safe, and at some level understanding, like when I come out and like take my first breath, it's going to be painful. It's going to be really different. So I really resonate with that, like that duality of coming from a place of oneness and being, you know, the more I do this experiment, the more I realize like, what is this body? You know, like the passenger consciousness, like I can really watch some things happen, and I'm like, I'm not in control of this. It's a different piece. And profile can really highlight what that is. I never thought I was someone that made mistakes. You know, I'm a 1-3 as well. I'm very much an investigator, very much want a solid foundation. And I think the most beautiful example I can give of that is probably in relationship. As a 1-3 in relationship, my first line is always looking for a solid foundation. It wants to continue to investigate and build and have something solid. My body needs space, and it's called bonds made and broken. It needs to constantly test and see is there still a compatibility here. So in my early years, I wanted to be with my partner all the time and have something really, really solid. But I would get to a point where my physical body would really be like rejecting.
Cut.
We need space. And I'm an open solar plexus, which is open emotional being. So I would avoid truth and confrontation. I didn't want to tell my partner that I needed space. She's going to think something's wrong. And then that emotional blowback is going to come, and I'm not going to feel comfortable with it. So I would, in my earlier relationships, I would get to that point where my physical being is saying, you need space. I would make up something that we were going to fight about. You know, I would make up some sort of chaos so that I can have the smoke screen, like we talked about earlier, of, oh, this isn't really working out. I need to, this is the reason why I need space. Not because my body needs space, but because I'm going to give you a reason now that I can hide behind. And to me, this was like the, avoidant man as a 1-3. It was really confusing. And the one is the pursuer or the pursued. So the one wants to pursue. Once I would be successful in my pursuit, my body wants to break the bond and start over again. So it was really chaotic in my early years of dating, and to just get that from profile, like, wow, the amount of sense that my previous relationships made, just understanding being a 1-3, I can forgive myself for those moments and understand, I was just avoidant. I grew up with an open solar plexus in a large family with lots of emotions that weren't processed. And that was a really scary place to be. I didn't know how to deal with it.
And a lot of times that bond's made and broken. It's really, the cut point is really good. It's meant, well, I feel it's meant to like distance ourselves from whatever is happening so that we have more time. Like we were even talking about lectures the other day. We were asking if you're still listening to lectures and if you're still studying. And I think part of the 1-3 likes to study and get into a lot of study, but then like to stop studying and go apply and then try and like experiment with that. But I think the same sense in like in relationships, if we need that cut or if we need space, it's so that we can investigate whatever's been going on within that space, so that if we are going to re-enter, we can re-enter it with our integrity, with our truth, or with our foundational understanding. And you brought up another piece on the emotions, and so Travis is a splenic 1-3 projector, and I'm a very deeply emotional 1-3 projector, and we were just starting to have conversations about the differences in those dynamics. And it's one of the things I feel like is most distortive in our social milieu of how those things, as we watch on the global stage, of how that's kind of appearing in the collective as distortion, and how what Ra used to share, that it's mostly the undefined emotional beings that usually identify with the emotions they feel and blame themselves and think something is wrong with them, and then the defined emotion is always blaming somebody else outside of them for feeling the emotion, which is actually the opposite of the authoritative qualities of that. So just curious of how that's been for you. We talked a little bit about it, but I think there's some important pieces that could come out.
I tell people, like, the solar plexus to me is maybe the most important center in the body graph, regardless of if it's open or not, because it's where we meet each other. You know, it's where intimacy takes place between the sacral and the solar plexus. And life, to me, especially as a projector, it's about being with other people. And living your design's great by yourself, but you know, if you show up with somebody and then, you know, you go haywire and you can't hold that space, what's the point? You know, so for me, I was telling you earlier, like the last 3.5 years for me, and I didn't plan this, but looking back, it was just deconditioning my open solar plexus. It was dealing with my emotions. And when I first started my experiment, the first thing I did was I went on Instagram and I posted that I've been depressed most of my life, and that I think I'm ugly a lot of the time, and that I feel isolated and alone. And I don't know if there's something with the 1-3 where it doesn't, like, I'm just an open book. I don't really care. Like, I can get it out. I think there's a lot of times where I even forget that other people are watching what's happening. And I just was like, oh, I think I just need to get this out. After posting that, I had more support show up for me. I had friends that came out of nowhere, that we're still super close to this day. This one action of just being vulnerable and getting out some ugliness that lived in the center, it changed my entire life. And I think maybe the biggest thing that it did for me was it started to bring me people who really saw and understood me for who I am and wanted to support and wanted to help. Versus before, when I was living more of a not self life, I had friends in my life, but they weren't in support of me being me. They were in support of me being who I had always been.
And who they wanted you to be.
And who they wanted me to be, because I would smile all the time. There was a joke from, I think, a Locke, and he said, you can really understand or see who an open emotional person is because they smile all the time. And I was like depressed and sad sometimes, and I would show up at school with a big smile on my face because it's like, I don't want to go there. Everything's cool. You know, everything's cool with me. You won't talk about it. I won't talk about it. And we'll all be good. So to me, this whole, a huge part of my experiment, at least, has just been coming to terms with emotions and what that means for me, what that means as a man, what that means as a human, and what that means in vulnerable connection with another being, which I didn't have.
That's really the truth and intimacy that we're all seeking. That's the vulnerability that we understand and we've heard, like, through all of our growing ups, that like vulnerability is our most potent strength. and to be that and to feel that and to live that is so much different than just thinking it. And like, but when we come out and we're actually sharing what is real, and I feel like not only does that bring us more support, but it also gives permission to the other people that like, wow, this being is really sharing what is going on, and where is that in my own self that I can do that, and I just want to support that. I want to give to that, and we're all traveling to this journey, whatever we're experiencing, of the experience of life, and it's so easy to see. And when we meet people and when they're telling us things, it's like the difference between meeting somebody when they're telling us this secondhand regurgitated information of a story that we've heard thousands of times before, and it's like eating rechewed McDonald's versus like meeting something and a sharing that is like fresh spring water. It's like, wow, I've never heard that before. I want to learn more. I want to learn more in the interest. And I feel like a lot of that comes from that vulnerability. And when we're no longer trying to be that thing that we've seen on TV or on Instagram, or that thing that we need to compare ourselves and try to be. And I feel like that is so much a part of this deconditioning process, is like understanding where those pieces, the echoes of that, lie in our openness, especially in the emotions, and especially all the places that truth has been avoided because of the fear of meeting emotions on the other side. And especially as we come into this era of 2027, or the sleeping phoenix, when emotional awareness is coming to form. And my understanding of emotions is it's really that's the whole abstract process. We had the whole splenic process on the 1858, 3254, all of that aspect that is based on logic, but the emotions are based on new experiences that's never been done before. So we have this pressure that's trying to find a new feeling, and it's jumping into a new experience that's never been done before, and it doesn't know what it's going to meet on the other side, even though it thinks it's going to meet what it logically thinks will happen. And then all of the analog feels of that process is like where we go into those waves, and it's a motor, and it's pumping and it's pumping, and it's trying to get us to feel every little detail within that process, so that then we can learn something, and it can be turned into logic. And then it can be something that is actually creating awareness, versus what we currently experience, where we have a new experience and it doesn't feel so good, so then we jump to the next experience, and then it doesn't feel so good, we jump to the next experience, and that wave becomes bigger and bigger until we actually learn what that wave was trying to teach us in the first place. So it's fascinating, and it's fascinating to speculate what that is also bringing in with the rave children that are coming in, and how the advent of AI is contributing to that, and all of these cosmic fairy tales that we can just speculate about, but we can start to sense and feel what is happening.
How are you emotionally as a young man? Were you in touch? I'm always curious what the define solar plexus take.
So I shared with my mother, she was a 3-5 reflector, and I lived my first 12 years of life just with her and my 2 sisters. And in that environment, I was given the world to just be me. I was just like, that was kind of flourished, and I got to explore, and I got to do it. In that state, my emotions were, I can't say they were amazing as a child, but I know I had my way of, even as a young projector, manipulating a little bit with my emotions and using those as an energy to kind of get what I wanted.
Sure.
But then after that, I moved with my father and went into a much more masculine, much more logical world, and kind of said goodbye to that chapter, and then had to really restrain my emotions, and I wasn't able to didn't feel as free to express my emotions in those places. And then that sent me into the military, and then there was no room for emotions in the military. And then after I got out of the military was when I started hearing about design and kind of understanding a lot of these pieces. But it took me quite a while after that to really process a lot of the emotions that had come through my time in the service. And but just to answer your question more, I feel like at a young age I was able to like express them and express them freely without any consequence. And then in the more masculine dominated correct world, it was like men don't act like that, you don't control that, and like men aren't supposed to cry, and all these pieces. And we were also talking about all these roles that we get into through the conditioning process of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a partner, what it means to be a business person, all these constructs that we have that we've been taught that we have to fit into to be a acknowledged member of society, and how much these are actually the constructs and echoes that kind of lead us away from our unique expression in life.
I'm curious your take on this. I told most people, like, to me, the beauty of human design is seeing who you're not. I can't tell you who you are. Even if I know your centers and your channels and your profile, and like I can give you keynotes and things. But for me, what happened was once I just got out of trying to be who I wasn't, who I am just started to kind of naturally come out. And it was almost like watching my ego come alive, watching my spontaneity come alive, like watching these things come alive in me. But it's not like I looked at my design, saw a channel, and thought, how do I do that one? You know, how do I be more of a splenic projector? Like I can't get there through my mind. But what human design really helped me with was going through those themes of my open centers and confronting me with my own bullshit, and then giving me tools to, okay, I don't have to make decisions that way anymore. So for me, and maybe it's a 1-3 thing too, is like, I really love the not self. I love what doesn't work, because once you stop doing that, then there's nowhere else to go but let who you are start to come out naturally.
So before that understanding, were you softening your ego or your arrogance or the things that the defined ego often gets kind of judged as being?
This is a fascinating topic. I had like the lowest self-worth. I had like no arrogance. I really feel like as a young man, my ego was really broken. I was taught that's a bad thing. You know, don't have it too good. Make sure other people are taken care of first. A lot of that conditioning, and I think there's such there's a lot of like misinformation about what a defined ego person goes through as a conditioned being. And I've done a workshop for only defined ego people. It's the most tears I've ever had in a single workshop, of these people feeling just broken, and they couldn't own that power that we have inside. So that was one of the first things I really didn't resonate with. And this isn't a human design teaching, but one of my readings, she said, oh, you have a defined ego. You have a really naturally consistent sense of self-worth. Well, it's not high self-worth. It was a consistent sense of like, I suck. So I always tell ego people, you know, if you have a defined ego and you're conditioned, you probably have the best not self. You know, I have so much willpower, and when I was beating myself up, it was just like constant and like really, really brutal. Sure. Yeah, really at odds with myself. So that was something that I didn't understand. And when I had one of my first readings, he said, wow, you know, going through having no self-worth with a design like yours, that is a bitter experience of life. Like, that's really got to hurt. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around defined ego.
Especially with the early conditioning of that open emotional center, is like in the avoidant, using that energy of your ego to make sure that you are not confronting truth, or that you do everything possible not to go there. It uses that energy. A lot of times I will share that, like, your definition is your superpowers, and the openness is your supervillain. And because the openness, where your mind will go in that openness, it will, I often use kind of the metaphor of, it's kind of like there's some gangsters in the hood, and they're taking jumper cables on your Lifeforce channels, and they're putting them into a warehouse party to kind of flex and prove. But how it takes that energy away, so what you have to demonstrate and share out, but you're stealing all that energy to put in all these things we're trying to be.
I love that.
And especially, I mean, in the hierarchy first goes to the emotional center and then the ego. So it's like those two connected are like the two most powerful pumps in the whole system. So when they're fighting each other, then of course it will go into that. I'm going to avoid my truth that I am fucking amazing, but I'm just going to like keep this story that I suck and I'm horrible because it keeps you safe. And especially, you know, and so I'm curious also that in like how in that early conditioning that you were not listening to your splenic hits and those things that would come and how much that gets desensitized over time. And if you have anything to share about that. Or what it was to start recognizing those splenic hits and what those whispers were like.
Yeah, I think most, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm guessing most men weren't taught growing up, hey, just listen to your intuition. You know, that wasn't my upbringing. So I didn't know what intuition was. I knew what work ethic was and, you know, the conditioning of go out there, get a job, work really hard. And that's life. So I think when I had that breaking point, maybe the first insight I ever had probably was just reading about a projector because it described how I felt exactly. And that gave me confirmation that what I had felt inside was the truth. Because how could this thing be speaking what I am feeling? You know, it was such a confirmation of like, hey, you're right. You know, your instinct is right. What you felt about yourself all these years is correct. And maybe that gave me the confidence to then start saying, okay, I'm gonna follow that voice. And it's been a long journey. I think a lot of it is getting out of my avoidance of that solar plexus so that then I can tap into the present moment. You know, as a splenic person, all I know is what's happening now. If the second a splenic person thinks you're screwed, like you're in big trouble because you're not present to what's happening now. And that's my only truth is now. And it's gotten to a point where I think it doesn't give a shit about most of the decisions I have to make in my life because most of them isn't life or death. It's you know, the spleen is about the immune system and our health and our body and the cleansing center. You know, it's worried about my survival. You know, what toothbrush I choose doesn't really care. So if I look at a wall of 100 toothbrushes and I think like, what's the best one to have? You go into paralysis. You go into that decision-making paralysis. So there's moments in my life now where I will feel a splenic hit. It's so visceral. It's so like I get the chills. I get tears if it's something really big for me. It's a full body experience. But it's not an everyday occurrence for me.
It doesn't stay there and keep reminding you. It's just like, it's in that moment. I'm going to give you this sign right now and you can listen to it or not.
Yep.
And it's really interesting for me because I have the spleen and the solar plexus defined. And I have that's my only 3 centers is my root, my spleen, my solar plexus. So I do have that very felt sense of what splenic hits are, but in order for me to like really understand and make the decision, I have to wait the wave, and it's so frustrating. It's like, but I already know, and it's already telling me to run, but it's like, no, you can't run yet because maybe it feels good here, or maybe. And so that's been such a big part of my learning is to understand, and also to understand, okay, this is telling me survival, and this is telling me kind of everything in between survival, and like, maybe we'll survive, maybe we'll on this day it feels like you'll survive. No, today you're not going to survive too well. It's like, oh. So just like understanding that has been a big part of my journey. And it also brought me to something that John Martin used to share a lot, that in our definition, John would always say that it's only the definition that is unconscious, or the red definition that is consistent, that becomes your true authority, because it doesn't have any of the mind or any of the personality's input in it. And that's something for me, because if that was the way, then I would be a splenic definition. But I have half of my personality definition in my 4130 that comes to my unconscious definition from my root. So it's like, it's such an interesting process. So I just learned it's better just to wait. Don't be so spontaneous. And and take more time.
How often do you find that the spleen did know the correct decision for you, or is
always? And that's the thing, is like it always knows. But I could have made that decision quickly then, but as emotions I would have not known why, or I wouldn't have been able to go the whole process to understand the quality of the experience. I would just said no, and I would have run. And it's like in relationships or sometimes jobs, it's like there's places where I got to, it's like, I just want to cut and burn everything down and let the emotions. But it's like as I've become more mature, it's just understood that life is happening. You don't have to cut. The more you just stay clear and resonate with what is true for you, those things will just dissipate and move away. We don't have to cut them, because when we cut, it's so, first there's all this kind of repair that needs to be done from cuts, and then we don't really understand what the purpose of it was, especially as a third line. It's like, if it didn't work, I want to understand why it didn't work, so I don't have to re-enter it again or go through that same wave again. There was something that, well, first of all, the fractal connection between us is really interesting, with a lot of study with Alok and also with John and Amy Lee. There used to be, I think, pre-COVID, there was an online group that was called the Projector Collective, which this couple out of Austin started, and midway through the Projector Collective, they turned it into the Human Design Collective because it wasn't attracting so much attention. And you've done a lot of study with them as two projectors, and also with Alok, who was one of my longtime deep mentors. And I was joking with Travis the other night, I often called Alok Freddy Krueger, because it's like felt like he had these initiating claws that, like, if you fall asleep, I will come for you. And it was just like his emotional sense of just initiating that place of showing the depth of amnesia that we get into when we're asleep and we have no awareness, and that he was just like so triggering of like, and sometimes would scream at you. It's like, no, rah, 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 and like getting his emotions of it, and he would feel it. It was like, I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want to go to sleep. I'm awake and understand what this means. And so, how was Alok for you? What was your journey like with Alok?
So he's emotional manifester.
1-3.
1-3. Same cross as me. He's a cross of consciousness as well. I remember the first training I did with him, we had to do a writing assignment. And he would read the writing assignment out loud to the class and then like critique you in front of everybody. So you're sitting there waiting for him to read your assignment and just, wondering, what's coming. And he had like the most beautiful things to say about my paper. Like he really loved my paper. And so I was like, oh, this is, what a relief. And then we did some one-on-one work together after that. But he's such an emotional design, such an impactful emotional man. And I think for me, it was the first time I'd ever been in a space consistently with a man who really owned his emotions and his impact. And that was something that I really deeply respected and was, really drawn to and attracted to. He doesn't hide anything, like he'll go off on tangents and like the emotions will take him somewhere else. And I felt very safe to go along for the ride with him. And he's had a deep impact in my life.
He's like one of the old schoolers that I love the most, that like doesn't really give too much energy to what other people are doing with design in the world, and still sticks to his truth of what is happening through his lens. And
he seems like he's having a great time.
She is.
This is how I find my people. I just look and be like, okay, who's having the most fun with this? Who's finding the most joy in their life, and who's obsessed with the right and the wrong and the rules and the, it means this and the arguments, and there's a lot of that out there. And to me, when I look at Alok and John and Amy, I'm just like, wow, they're just living their life, and it seems peaceful and well, maybe not peaceful. That's a good word.
Them,
fluctuates.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm sure that I'm not sure how it works with Human Design Indonesia, but then I'm noticing more and more as like as these collective trends start growing and growing, there's like this edge that is kind of a distortive element on the edges that claims to be something that it's not, or claims to be design, or claims to be self-help, or get more this, or have the better relationship, or all of these pieces that we know that the not self loves and it wants to have more. And it's really brought up a lot in my work because I'm often working with executives or people that are in high positions. And that, so when I come to sessions, sometimes I don't even use the word human design at first, because it has such a stigma around it, and what Instagram is posting, and that has come from first year analysts thinking that they are already masters without having applied this information or into an embodied experience. And I feel like this is, and again, there is no right or wrong.
Sure.
And every person that is experiencing or transmitting will get met with whatever frequency that is right for them before we meet them.
Sure.
But that's been such an interesting journey, because beyond the individual human design aspect of what we are and how our cells are organized in the greater organism, it's really, for me, and I was telling you this also yesterday, is like, for me, it's the design of natural law. It's how nature works. It's the design of all the minute cycles and rhythms and patterns of how our stellar bodies affect what is happening here on this planet. And we can apply that to the design of plants and mammals and fish and insects and even greater things if we spend the time to just understand those cycles.
Yeah.
And so it's so fascinating in looking at that lens. And that's where I've been kind of aiming a little bit more to sharing that what I have to share is about your native intelligence, what your native intelligence is trying to tell you in any moment, without any kind of stigmas about what that means.
Sure.
How has that been in your practice? Or I think recently you just started a projectors lounge.
Yeah. Brought a lot of projectors together. But I think maybe it's a real 1-3 thing, what you're talking about. Like, we want the core of the information. You know, I want to know what works and what doesn't work. The only reason I do human design is because it worked for me. That's it. And it's not like I believe it. I still test it all the time. I still make mistakes every day. But it was set up for me in a way of like, oh, this is how you make decisions. You're a projector, wait for the invitation, make decisions like this and see what happens. And it's just unfolded in a way that I couldn't even imagine. My life the last 6 years is like, we don't have time for that whole story, but I heard Ra say once, if you really follow your design, you're not going to have any idea what's going to happen to you. Like, you just don't know mentally what's going to happen. And that's been my experience. How do you sell that to somebody? You know, the Open Head Center is the most open center we have in humanity. It wants more inspiration, more content, more information. It wants all of these things. It's easy to sell people that. Hey, you're going to make $10K a month if you come do this course with me. You know, hey, you're going to find the relationship. Hey, all of these things. If you're selling human design, you can't promise anybody anything other than, you know, kind of your signature for your type of, hey, you could be recognized and successful. Hey, you could find more peace. Hey, you could be more satisfied. You can be surprised. And that's what's unfolded. But how it's going to play out, I don't think we could possibly comprehend.
And that seems to be the beauty of all of these pieces, and what all of these esoteric wisdoms and occult sciences have like shared with us, that it's about really surrendering to being in the present now, so that we can expand past what our mind's constructs have mapped from this point back. It's not to keep perpetuating all of these maps that we already have built up. It's to like expand these walls and get rid of the walls and keep on expanding to the possibilities that we could never have imagined. So.
And how wrong are what I think I want, even when you get it sometimes, it's never what you really wanted. Like, my mind, I've realized in my life, like, it doesn't really know what's going to make me happy. It doesn't really know what's going to make me feel recognized. Like, Ra's joke was always like, you go to school, it kind of lays out a path for you. You could be a doctor or a lawyer or, all these things you could be. He said, they didn't tell me that I could go have a mystical experience in Ibiza, hear a voice, and then go share that information with everybody and be, this person. Like I've learned in my life that my mind has no idea what's going to make me happy and feel fulfilled. And doing human design, like in every session and every conversation and every group, like I just turn into a different person. I light up. Like it's obvious witnessing what makes me happy. But I could never have gotten here mentally. I'm not this guy. I'm not a spiritual guy. I'm not a human design guy. I'm never going to do a reading. And my mind's fought me the entire way most of the time.
And that's so confrontational. As well, for me, that seems so confrontational at times when I see these people that like have worked their whole life to that point of what they knew they were going to be, and they're established, and they have the Lamborghini or whatever that thing is that is like, and it's such a juxtaposition sometimes.
I'm working on like a writing right now of, I think that each type kind of carries within it like a universal law of what it is to be a human. And we're all here to learn from each other. And so if you just break it down really simply via type, you get kind of a understanding of what life is all about. And if you start with the generator is you have to love what you do. It's pretty easy. The 2946 is like, if you commit to something purely out of the joy and love of it, you're going to be succeeding where other people fail. Okay, that makes sense. Love what you do. I think everybody can get on board with that. To me, the manifester is like, you must be authentic. You have to speak your truth. You can't hide anything. You have to be vulnerable and share that raw creativity that lives inside of you. That's the only way you find peace. If you don't, you're going to be really angry, So we can all learn from the manifester. It's always better to be authentic and to speak our truth in any moment than not. Projector, it took me a little while to think what it was. And what I came to was success can't be achieved alone, because we're the only type that really is dependent on the other. And if you want to be successful, you have to be recognized for who you are. And so being, someone that's making billions, but you're alone, that's not success. That's just a mental construct of making money or acquiring material or whatever it is. Like, success really needs to be shared with other people. And the reflector is life's here to be a surprise. And if it's not a surprise, it's usually disappointing. If it doesn't go how we planned it anyways. But they kind of embody like, I get joy out of curiosity and being pleasantly surprised that it's not what I think it is. And so I think if you just put those four things together, it's kind of a beautiful recipe for what life can be. And it's just I don't know how to wrap that up, but it's just kind of interesting.
My mother used to share that as a reflector, because she would the reflector is always looking or thinks it wants consistency, because the most consistent thing in their life is inconsistency, because of the areas that they're always moving through.
Consistent to be inconsistent.
Yeah, exactly. And so she was always like, the times when I would show up that she wasn't expecting me, it would always be such a surprise. But the times when she was really hoping I would show up, or expecting that I would show up, or expecting anything to be that way, it was like such a disappointment. And that understanding that you can't have an expectation of what's going to happen, because you don't know what's coming into your field and you don't know what you're going to witness. So the more surrendered you are into that innocence, then the more you get to be surprised at what life is showing you. And the way that you were sharing that simplifies things very clearly. And I'd love to, you can use that other painting on the roller coaster. I was sharing with Travis before that, like, the emotions and understanding the emotions are kind of like being an artist or painting while you're on a roller coaster. You're going and you only have one dot there and one dot there, and it takes like 4 or 5 passes of the roller coaster before you start seeing the picture coming to form. So it's like, there's a lot of that, of what I've experienced in the emotional wave and how that works. And also I have a little bit of artistic creativity in me that can relate it to that as well. So That's something that we were jamming on before.
Yeah.
Do you-
Oh, sorry. We're going to do
Please.
some questions.
I wanted to just kind of, Jordy, you asked a question earlier about the 7-year process and deconditioning and how that functionality, how we felt about that, or how long it takes. And I mentioned 7 years, yes, but it's a lifetime of you continually are doing that, because even after that 7 years, even if your mind has deconditioned to be able to start listening to your body again, that's one step, but there's like the layers keep on peeling, and it's like it's not that you can just take your eye off the road again and not have awareness and think it's just going to keep continuing after that 7 years. And I'm curious what you have to share about the deconditioning process, and then I would love to open, see if there's any questions that we can get into.
I think time as a splenic person is kind of a joke. To me, I always like, I think the thing that used to bug me the most is if you're trying to make plans with someone and they give you a date that's like over a week, you know, oh, I can fit you in like 2 weeks from now. And I think inside I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be here in 2 weeks, you know, like I don't know what's going to happen in that time. Like it's got to be now. So for me with the deconditioning process, I think the beautiful thing is it can bring change every day. Something else could be different. You know, that the first day I found out being a projector, I changed so much in that moment. I can't think where I'm going to be in 10 years or something like that. You know, to me, there's questions, and I think we all resonate with different questions. That's a huge thing I've learned as a cross of consciousness is are we asking ourselves the right questions? Is this really your question? Is it a question that got stuck in there from somebody else, you know? And there's certain questions and certain areas of design that just aren't for me, that I don't care about, or I don't have an opinion on, or I don't even go there. And that's one of them. Is I don't care how long it takes. My life has changed since day one, and it's been a hell of a ride. But I can't go there. I just can't mentally go there.
Thank you. I was going to ask one more question just about, I know that generally incarnation crosses isn't something that you bring up too early on in the process, because people then feel like they have to adapt and try to do something.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we look at our body graphs and we are kind of under the assumption that's design of a cell within the larger organism that we are. And Ra used to share that the mandala is a calendar of the beginning of the cellular process, or of the human experiential way, starting with the 41st gate. For me, incarnation crosses, because it's the juxtaposition between the body and the personality, and that's what creates the field, or the resonant magnetic field outside of our being. For me, the incarnation cross is really the functionality that we serve in the larger organism. And for example, you said you're the cross of consciousness. So as you're pulsing with your aura, there's little that you really have to do when you're in a field. You're just doing that. And your openness, or the receptors, is picking up information from your field, and your definition is the transmitter. So that's just kind of happening through that auric field. And I'll just get to this point. My cross is penetration. And one of the major parts of the penetration, my personality sun, is the 51, which loves to agitate, and it loves to poke, and it loves to initiate, and I have it at an open ego. And so there's these places that I will just go into environment, or I'll be in a work environment or a relationship environment, and a lot of times I make people uncomfortable, because there's this part of my penetration that is looking to trigger the pieces that are stagnant within any environment. And I spent a lot of my life trying to make up for that, trying to make people feel comfortable after I made them uncomfortable, because I didn't understand. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but please feel okay, please feel okay. So I realized I was defeating myself in my whole process. I was trying to make people more happy and more comfortable through that process. And the last 10, 12 years, I've realized the gift of that, because once the person that is uncomfortable, that has gotten motivated from that experience, has been able to get out of that stagnation and move through that uncomfortability and grow to a place, the level of gratitude that comes from that freedom of being at that next place and not being stagnant anymore is like success. Like it brings that success, but it requires the uncomfortability and to stay in that uncomfortability and to learn a lot about the art of not needing to people please. And I think as a projector, that's a really important piece too. And it's almost like at the beginning of our process as projectors, there's a lot of emphasis around needing to be recognized and wanting to be recognized. But I feel like in the maturity of a projector, it's the aspect of not wanting to be recognized, be able to get in and get out without being recognized, and just watching the success happen. And as a result of the success, that you automatically have reciprocal energy that is flowing through you. And a lot of times John Martin used to share it a lot about the Jedi, or about the wizard, or about the understanding of how to navigate and get in, put that one little drop of oil, put that one little drop, ask the right question that, I just asked you a question, I didn't do anything. It's just like, because we're here to bring self-empowered selfishness. What did Raw used to call it?
Yeah, he called it, I use this term all the time. Enlightened selfishness.
Yeah. But self-empowerment, returning the life force of the generator back to itself. Because as the sacral life force in the being, 80% of our planet has been enslaved to, excuse my language, but a whitey on top of a pyramid, like cracking the whip to make sure that all of the life force is doing something for it and receiving little scraps in return. But this is an age where, as the phoenix is awakening, that this individual self-empowerment is coming back. It's like, why, what am I here to do for myself in this moment? Remembering this life force, you are the life. Like the sacral life force is the life, and returning that back to them to realize it's not for everybody else, and to start seeing all the places that generators mortgage their life force to all of these other relationships where it's no longer there and available for them and their fulfillment or their empowerment. And I guess just with that, maybe we can open up conversation to any of you that would like to ask questions, either to Travis or myself. Do we want to take a little? Okay.
First of all, it's a very beautiful story, Kita and Travis. I think for Kita, I have a question. I think it's interesting that your background is military, and then now I know that you do some retreats and things like that. So it's such a different environment and things that you do from military, and then something that is a bit more spiritual and more humanitarian. Can you elaborate more about your process? Is it are you changing the not changing, maybe after learning human design, do you think that military doesn't suit you, or something like that? Or is there any part, because I know that projectors, and also you, Travis, I'm also projector, so I know that projector has lots of conditioning coming from the society and family and things like that. And then suddenly usually they are getting really tired or exhausted or bitter in their life until they find human design, and then they began the process of deconditioning, and then probably they change the career, the profession, or things like that. So is there something that you can share with us, that from your background, military, and then suddenly you change the course of your life into something that is more?
Yeah, for sure. As I mentioned before, like growing up, I was raised by my mother, and I felt, now in hindsight, I was totally being raised as a projector to follow whatever my focus was, and that was being supported. And I was also a very yin, feminine environment that I was raised in. And now I am I maybe not look like it, but I'm a very yin. I have a lot of feminine qualities to myself now that I've been able to receive and understand my sensitivities and really lean into that. But in my adolescence, I went into my father's home, which was a complete different pivot. And I was really yearning for that masculine energy too, to understand what that was. So I was listening, and in that I was being conditioned to be this more masculine, strong, authoritative leader, fighter, protector, all of these pieces. And I also had some background in my family history that was military as well. So it like felt that was the right thing to do. If I really wanted to be a man, I needed to do that. On top of the fact that I was in an environment that I knew I didn't want to stay in and I needed a way out. So I entered that realm of wanting to go into law enforcement and corporate law, and understanding that there was a career ladder that I could climb and that the military could pay for it. And so I took that route because their marketing scheme was so good in high school, and the uniforms looked really cool. And you got to carry a gun and have power. And I was really under this guise that I was protecting my country and the people. And long story short, I went through 4 years of the military and went through all of these chains of command and all of these areas of rigorous training and carrying guns and being the person in power. And that culminated to the Los Angeles riots when Rodney King, I don't know if any of you remember that, in the early 90s. And we were dispatched from Camp Pendleton, 3 battalions of us, locked and loaded with full ammunition, told with orders to use lethal force if necessary. And that, for all of us, we were riding in the bus. We were like, what's going on here? Where are we going? And we arrived in Los Angeles to people that could have been cousins or brothers or friends or family. And it was so confrontational at that moment, holding a weapon, knowing that I had the power to take this person's life if I wanted to, just because they were opposing me. And literally in that moment, I don't know if any of you remember the old TV sets that, like, if it lost signal, it just starts staticking. I had moments of this happening in real time as I was supposed to be doing my job, and that started happening, where what it felt like to me is that my spirit was breaking through all of this conditioning that I had been indoctrinated with. And so at that point, I was really confused, and I was just re-enlisting for another 6 years in the military because I was going to officer candidate school, and long story. But I realized that that was not the path that I was meant to be on anymore. And I tried to do it through the normal channels and to get out and say I went out of this, and they were having none of it. So I just left at that point. And I ran back to my mom, who was living in Sedona, Arizona. And she, reflector as she was, she sent me to live with a family in northern Arizona on a native indigenous reservation, just to live with them for 9 months, chop wood, carry water. And I started repatterning and understanding that there was something different. And then shortly after that, design started coming into my life, and I was still resisting it because it was still so far away of where I was. I was not so receptive. But along that journey, I can't say it was just design that did that, but design was the major tool that gave me a map of how to move forward. And it took me a long time. It was like, I still worked for the government. I worked in, I was a bondsman for a while, and then went security. And I still tried to use those skills that I learned in the military and into other jobs. But then I realized that was still my forceful masculine trying to do. And then, like, now 30 years later, I am in a place of still bringing what I feel like social reform, but from the inside out versus the outside in. I was trying to change a beast from the outside, think I could do it through all these corporate and legal structures, but now it's realizing how that beast works, or how that machine works of conditioning, and understanding how individually, we go through these places of thinking we can save the world, and we often get lost in these missions. And then we remember that we are the world, and that the only way we really are of service is not by teaching and saying people, this is the way, it's by modeling our uniqueness, modeling our individuality. And so I think a lot of that process has just been sinking more and more of just being comfortable being myself, and as a result of myself being so unique and different from what other people see, it attracts it. People are like, what is that you're doing? And I was like, I don't know this. It just, but human design gives a map to that, to like, it's not, you don't need to be like me. It's like this being me is awakening some permission within each being that gets to experience that, that remembers that part of their own uniqueness, that takes a deep breath and say, oh, that feels relieving. I remember that part of me. How do you do it? And what are the tools? So these are a lot of the environments that I invite people into now, is not rigidly on design modalities, although I use design as one of my major tools, but all different modalities that bring that together. And now is a big time of, even for me, surrendering even more into one of my greatest gifts that I've kind of denied for most of my life, was just music and the expression of music. That now I get to synthesize I'm just coming into my Chiron. I'm 52, so I'm in my Chiron phase. So now I'm experiencing this lotus that I've tried to been peel open most of my life and get the petals open. Now it's like I'm feeling the relaxation of how that's doing, and starting to like realize, like, ooh, that's beautiful. That smells amazing. I have something to share, and it's really natural and easeful. And I get to share that transmission that isn't always mental and doesn't have all of these constructs around it, but it's just a frequency that gets to be shared that contains all of this. So I hope that answered your question, but that's
beautiful. Thank you. And then also for therapists, because I know that your ego is divine. I think it's nice if you can share about the conditioning or deconditioning the ego center, because I think in population, ego center that is divine is less than 20. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, less than 20. So I think if you can share your experience with the deconditioning of the ego, which you already mentioned, I know, but maybe you can elaborate.
Sure.
More, yeah.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
That like really, beautiful. Yeah. I need praise. I need recognition. I need touch. I need, in the ego is the heart of the tribe. And when we talk about tribal circuitry, we talk about touch, and the word massage comes to my mind. And then I realized, oh, this is why we say he needs his ego massaged. I'm coming to terms with, like, it's not that I even want it. It's that in order to use this power of, I have something to prove, I have something to transmit, I have something to use to shock people into more love of themselves. It requires being cared for, I think, in a way that feels uncomfortable sometimes, or I get afraid to ask for it, or the analogy I always use is, they say, like, if you are going to go tip somebody, give them a tip, and you put it into the tip jar, you should feel just as good if no one sees you and you leave the money in there, than if someone sees you and says thank you for the tip. I think the defined ego wants to be seen putting the money in the tip jar. There's just something that it wants to be so generous. One of the another conditioning force for me is, like, I just want to give so much. In anything I do, like, I want to give more. Some people are like, my reading's 90 minutes, and at 89 minutes, like, we're going to be done. Like, you have a minute left. That might be right for some people. When I do sessions, there's extra that I want to bring to it if the energy's there. And that's okay, but I want it in return also, so I think it's just coming to terms with this feeling of, like, yeah, sometimes I want to be first. Sometimes I want to feel the best to myself, and that's totally okay. And Ra says, a defined ego, the health of that defined ego is in direct proportion to the amount of praise and recognition and support that you have in your life from the people around you. And I didn't have much, I just had me. I'm still coming to terms with what it means, but to me, a healthy ego is so generous and it wants to support its tribe. And an unhealthy version, we all know what an unhealthy ego expression is. Another thing I'll say is if I don't own that power inside of me, and the majority of people have the open ego, they take it. They take it, and it's not healthy, and they can use it in really, in ways that don't feel good. Whether it's jealousy or being stabbed in the back, or so many defined egos I talk to, they have problems with friends, jealous friends, where you thought you were best friends, and all of a sudden you found out they were saying something, and you're like, "What? I thought we were so." Like I was being supported by this person. So, but I think it's our responsibility to own that power that we have, but it demands of respect, and loyalty is another word that really comes to mind for a defined ego, and devotion. It's it's an interesting topic. And I think the most profound thing, like I said earlier, was the workshop I did to see all the tiers of defined ego people.
Maybe you can also share about that, the workshop that you went to. So maybe the workshop with the defined ego, so the conditioning of defined ego. So I'm interested about the meeting with Richard Newman as well.
With who? With Richard Beaumont?
Yeah, also it's another fractal.
Yeah.
No. Travis met in Ibiza, right?
Yeah. I met him in Ibiza. Not too long ago. Yeah. Just an amazing man. What was the first question? Oh, the tiers of the defined.
So what happened in the workshop?
Yeah.
Make you realize that the defined ego, because I think in Human Design, the defined ego, we always want to have a reciprocal relationship, like something that is, it's a commitment, like two ways of giving. I think it's as a defined ego. But at the same time, the low self of the defined ego is it could become transactional. We expect something. If we give something, we expect also something in return. Is it something that's also or how was the workshop plan, and then how the construct or the condition?
I had a thread, and I completely lost it. It was a really good point. Let me just think back to that workshop really quick. I don't know if I have anything new to say about it, other than a beautiful thing of design is when you get similarities in people together, and you start to just let them share vulnerably, and they speak words that are inside of you, and you realize, like, you're not alone. It wasn't just me. This is a mechanic. It's a theme, and people experience it in similar ways. I think again, it was just the breaking of my ego that hurt so bad, and that was a shared experience with everybody else in that workshop. Was feeling like they were just giving their power away, and it being taken by other people and used in a way that was not wasn't okay. Feeling alone in that. Yeah. Sorry, I had a point, and it went, and I don't know where it went. Yeah, I had a person ask me once with a wide open ego, and he said, "Do you really feel like you need to be the best sometimes?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "But I don't understand that." And I go, "Yeah, it's okay. You don't need to. Oh, here was the point. Perfect." I went to a projector retreat at the Human Design Conference in Santa Fe, and we divided up into, the first group was every projector with the 5125. You go and get in a group together, and there's nothing more comfortable for an ego being than being with another ego being. It's like there's no competition, there's no proving, like we can all be we can all hold that. Whereas if I'm with an open ego person, you can really, really feel sometimes the competition, the jealousy, the, whatever it is. It's like you're on guard because you're waiting for feeling too much, feeling too direct, whatever that is. But there's just this comfort and relaxation that comes into your body when you meet other ego beings, which you would kind of think would be the opposite. There would be competition, or there'd be this or that. But that's a common theme that came up in that group, was we could all just take a deep breath and relax because we all got it. No one's coming for it. No one's distorting it. No one's gonna try to hurt you with it. We can just be chill. And I always thought, like, and this was me denying my ego when I was a kid. I'm not competitive. I'm a chill surfer guy. I don't need to be first. I'm just this like chill dude. My body would put myself in the position to win always. It was always ready to compete. It was like the physical part of me was doing the ego thing, and I was completely in denial that I had any of these qualities in me because I didn't feel like they were safe. And I remember being in high school with friends, like I would get singled out a lot. And when they were fighting with other people, like people would come after me, and I'm like a small guy, like I'm not a fighter, I'm like, what are you doing coming after me? I've been like, I remember at a bar once, I was hit from behind by this guy because I think I was talking to his girlfriend, who was a friend of mine, in like a really friendly way. And he just came up behind me and just whacked me. And I thought I got hit with a beer bottle or something. I didn't know what happened. So just like weird things like that, I don't know if it's 100% the ego, but it would make sense to me that there was just a feeling of a threat or something like that. So I've had really a hard time with trust and that loyalty and understanding, like, do they want something from me, or they feel threatened by me, or and that was a cool experience because it wasn't like me doing anything. That was obviously just an expression of my natural energy that's there. Excuse me. Yeah. I'm glad I found them. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. To me, the word discernment comes to mind. Discernment. Who do I let in my space? As a projector in the beginning, I want to be seen by everybody. I want to be recognized by everybody. It's like, oh, invitations, sure. And I'm not even paying attention to, does this person really see me or not? And so I think one of the hardest parts for me, especially having an ego, because you love the recognition, feels so good, is really taking the time to feel, is this person right for me, or are they wrong for me? Even if they're offering recognition or money or whatever it is. And that comes from the body. So yeah, I think projectors and discernment is a really big topic of it'd be nice to be recognized by everybody, but unfortunately, Ra always talks about projectors too, as like, our life force energy is so specific and unique to a certain fractal or a certain person. And so I know, I'm a weirdo. Like, I know the people I attract, it's not everybody. It's not like, it's very, very, very specific. And it's been easier the more I do this to recognize that resonance. This person's here for me. We're meant to have a relationship or friendship or whatever it is. And the ones that where it happened, where I got hit or something crazy, it's so obvious I wasn't meant to be there. I was not supposed to be in that environment.
Third line.
Third line. Gotta get hit again. I've been hit in out surfing in the lineup, but that was me like running my mouth as a projector. We're so good at knowing what to say to really piss somebody off. Like projectors, like if you want to cut somebody, we know the truth of that person, so we can really, like, I knew exactly what to say to like really hurt someone like really deeply. And I was surfing in San Diego once, and I was out in the lineup, and this guy was getting all aggressive with me, probably an ego thing. And I just said one thing, and he just fucking swung at me. It got me pretty good. And that was another third line lesson. But I think it's something with this 5125 and the transmitter, and like I can be extremely, extremely sharp. And in my earlier years, not very smart.
You also have that?
I have the 4426 and the 5125. Yeah. Yeah.
How about the channel 44 and 26? That's also 26 is for ego, the love of marketing, content, being in the public spotlight, and also recognized by like the same frequency people. How do you know? How do you accept that? Okay, I love the spotlight, and also all the haters maybe in social media or other communities.
Yeah, you just want to talk about Taylor Swift. I think it's just that, just knowing. To me, I'm an idiot by myself. Like if I try to structure something that has to do with my variable also, like it's really hard for me to get content out. But to me, this channel of the transmitter, number one, you have something to transmit to your tribe. So just to own that, okay, I have something to say. Really important for you. How do I want to say it? How does it feel good expressing myself? How can I get comfortable with if I do something, I have to put my face on it? That can be something that's really hard to step into. But when you get in the spotlight, to me, the 4426, if you lined up 3 different people in front of me and I had to sell them the same thing, I could literally watch myself change my presentation to meet you or to meet you or to meet, it just instinctually shifts to get it to land to that person. And it's not a mental thing. It's just as long as I'm present, I can watch my voice change. I can watch my body language change. Like I'll have a weird accent all of a sudden. Like it's really my instinct is naturally reading the moment and then selling what it is that I am selling in that moment. So
you have an open throat as well?
Open throat. Yeah.
So I feel like this is definitely a quality of the open throat as well as the projector aura and focusing. And the reason it's so important to have one-on-one interactions is because even speaking, if we were just speaking to all of you, there's like a synthesized version of how to speak that is sharing these elements that is broad. But the moment we step into one-on-one environment, there's an understanding of how to connect directly with you, the way that understanding, listening a little bit how you've talked, how you've been explaining of how we can share it back to you. So I think that's a synthesized, a piece that I can definitely recognize in myself as well. And especially the open throat is like, I feel like my throat is kind of like a box that has recorded every single sound and everything that I have heard in the past and is there. And that when the right environment comes up, it's easy to shift or to make that sound or to emulate those pieces. And that's why I think for the open throat, one of the most important things is not to speak unless someone has spoken to you, because then you understand how to speak back with them in a way that they can really receive it. I just felt to add that on to the ego piece, because I feel like, yes, I mean, that was also called the channel of white and black magic, because you can sell something to somebody, you can know how to sell it to them for your agenda or for the agenda of that person themselves. Is like, which way are you using that understanding and that knowledge?
Actually, the open center is a place that you can be more empathy to understand others easily, naturally.
Yeah, well, I feel that, but I mean, and this is something that I've learned also, not just in the human story context, that what we're receiving in our open centers, but also all the biological information that you're receiving and how much that is coming into our centers. So, for example, if it's like if you're an open G, which has to do with the liver, and it's all about being in the right environment that is correct for us and how important environment is for us. If we're in an incorrect environment, we have really little control over our being. Will start adapting to that environment and start being the chameleon in that environment, not only to emulate or recognize how it is important to be in that field, but we're also taking in all of the things, all the effects of the biological information of the other people's liver or other people's health or things that are in that field. And so that's the importance of understanding. I feel, I'll just segue a little bit into this, that all the places that we try to be something is, so for example, I'm just defined my root, my spleen, and my solar plexus. So everything above that has been open. And when I first go out into the world and my mind sees this quality of someone's defined ego or someone's defined sacral, and sees that as a very valuable thing in society to achieve, accomplish, be, have status, then the mind's saying, ooh, that's a quality I should have. I really like being that. And when that other person is gone from the environment, it's no longer there, those are the first moments that the mind goes and tries to take the energy from somewhere else and prove that it has that quality, rather than, like you said, be more empathic to understand what that person is experiencing, and that's theirs. And to be able to, I don't feel like so much as that is mental. It's not a mental process that we go through to try to think about it, but it's the information that's coming to our system to inform our definition of how to transmit back out into that environment. So it is very true. It's like, and this is also something with the emotions and the undefined emotions, is you have the ability to sense the emotional field when you go into it. And so it's the not self version is to avoid confrontation and truth, but the true self attunement to that is knowing when is the right time to confront the truth. You don't confront the truth when somebody is peaking on their low wave and they're pissed off and they're already bringing this. And a lot of the defense system, sometimes that place that knows how to piss off the person just loves to poke the bear and is like, ooh, I feel that and I can just get them right there. And then that brings even a bigger wave. Pop! Whatever that is that hits us back, that kind of reflects that action back. So I think the importance, yes, it is an empathetic response mechanism that can sense what is happening in those open. The more and more we have awareness, and I think this is the beauty of the not self questions that we can get into, is that, am I doing this to prove something or to prove to myself? Am I doing this to avoid confrontation or truth? Am I doing this to answer somebody else's question? So you can start having awareness when this is coming up as a flex to use that life force to prove something or to be something that we're not.
I have a question. Question for you, Peter. Earlier you mentioned that design is one of your key tools in the toolkit. Curious about all of the tools, but perhaps the tools around design that you might collaborate it with or connect it with to create new types of value.
Well, I mentioned earlier, and I wanted to kind of bring something more to this story I was sharing about, from the military to now to current. And, I mentioned that the advent of the projector was here to start liberating the life force back to itself. The manifestor was here to whip it into conditioning and get a lot done for the cross of planning, because there's a lot of things that needed to be done. And what I found myself in the military is I was acting as the oppressor of the energy. I was forcing them to do what I told them to do. And so I was kind of opposing my natural function. And as I've started to shift that, what I also shared earlier was that for me, design is less just about human design. It's like the mechanics of natural law. It's how nature works and reminds us that we're not separate from all of this, that we are intricately connected. And the more that we learn that relationship of how connected we are, the more that we can live in harmony with it. So after I got out of the military, I kind of went on a tour of indigenous communities all around the planet, trying to understand what it was that my government wanted to oppress and take away from. And what I found was every one of them were living in harmony with their environment. They were living in resonance with nature. So just to answer your question, a lot of that came into my focus on applying structures that were regenerative and that were in harmony with nature. And so a lot of that toolkit has gone into community building, and lately into creating land-based communities that are operating in attunement with nature, that are in alignment with the way that nature works. Like, for example, now we're in Bali, and we're in one of the most concentrated focuses of extractive wellness. There's a lot of pitch about wellness and spirituality, but there's a lot of people that are using these same colonial methods to come get what they want and take it away. And one of the pieces that we're focused on a lot now is like, how do we create regenerative wellness? How do we create these methods of wellness and attunement, and not only give it to the commercial aspect, but give it back to the hosts that are welcoming us to be and have this opportunity to be here and experience this quality of life in a place of the people that have remembered the harmony of the connection. And so the tools that I love to focus my energy on are those that are bringing back the awareness of our connection to nature, of our resonance to natural harmony, and how we, this is how beautiful for me for design is like as a mapping tool to understand these pieces of how we really do that without having to try. But what are the natural ways that we just start to be symbiotic in our ecosystems, that we are both receiving and giving back, and that's not like a transactional exchange. And so all of my process have been going into understanding the systems. You know, we as projectors, we love to understand systems. We can see where the inefficiencies are, and this is, you know, especially in this environment, this is one of the biggest challenges, is waiting for that invitation to go in there and tell how to improve. And this last year, now that we have a new administration in Indonesia, there's a, you know, Prabowo has a strong emphasis of wanting to be a leader in these new technologies that are coming, to be a country that is standing for the resources of the land, whether that's just a tactic or whether that's his true desire. Now they're starting to ask questions to those of us that are working in these areas, and it's not, they're not wanting to form partnerships, but they're, you know, they're asking questions. So that's starting to be an invitation. It's like, we see that you're doing some things and you're focused on these areas. What are these areas? So it's like starting to welcome us into those places to be able to offer what I feel like those tools have to bring. And very similar to the projects that you're working on, that at least the little I know of it. And again, for me, the most abstract aspect of that, I have a 4130, so like a lot of my focus of wanting to share collectively is understanding these patterns. I also have the 1858, the ineffective patterns that have been in place for so long, and being able to share in a way what the collective resonance is and how to turn a frequency into bringing that into a new state. And so I'm learning how to trust that my music is not just music and not just a way to share something and be in the spotlight, but it is a way to bring coherence into a frequency that allows us to be in a state of presence where we can really feel what is there versus trying to think what is there. And then in that whole toolbox is, you know, comes plant medicines, and comes meditation, and comes indigenous studies, and it's really just tools of presencing.
Anyone else?
Jordy, please, Ronaldo.
I just want to ask, generally, in human design, like in relationship, this projector goes along well with other projector or with generator, as a business and maybe a romantic relationship. Is there kind of like guidelines, or is it specific in relationship? Like, if I want to go to business, should I consider, if he's a manifestor, then this kind of aspect or that kind of aspect?
Want to take
I
that one?
have a deep dive answer to that, but I'm curious if you have a splenic answer.
I have a splenic answer. That's not going to be satisfying, but to me, and I like the question of what other modalities do you use? To me, what human design has done is get me to love myself and trust myself. And that's it. That's pretty much it. You can look at all. A good example is me and my ex on paper probably have the worst relationship chart you could have. We're both single definition, and we come together. We make a triple split design, and she's an emotional manifester, and my definition does not touch her emotions, and her definition does not touch my spleen. So we have this like fierce independence, and when we get together, it's just like we're not in our flow. One of our connections is the 515, which they say is the hardest electromagnetic connection to have, because I'm a 5, fixed patterns and natural rhythms, and she's a 15 in extremes. So we're both in our flow. When we come together, we are not in our flow. We're now in a flow of a relationship that happens to be a triple split design. It was beautiful. We had an amazing time together. It lasted 4 years, but if I were to dissect that in the beginning, I'm not going to spend time with this woman, like for both of our sakes, it wouldn't work out, but we did. And it was amazing. So to me, there are people that can answer that question so much better. To me, human design was a way to fall in love with myself, to stop being so mean to myself, and to trust what comes is correct for me without thinking about it. So that's my unsatisfying answer for you. Is I don't really go there. Yeah.
And I feel like that I 100% agree. And there's no right chart and wrong chart of mixing together. It's just like the understanding of, once you see the designs together and you realize that a lot of the things that we often try to change in the other in relationships, where we point the finger, a lot of times that is the definition of that person that is just doing that and doing that all the time. And when we see that and we just can accept that that's most likely going to be that way throughout the whole relationship, and if we can live with that, then there's an acceptance of that being as they are without us trying to change them for what we need them to be. Through the whole process of planning, we were set up as an organism through a genetic imperative. We were here to reproduce, and make more and create more humans on the planet. And through that, the pair bonding structure was looking for the most opposite version of itself to be able to bond with, because that brought more viability in the gene pool. That subject was going to be able to survive more. Now that we're entering into this new cycle of life where it's no longer about making more and more experience, it's about the individual empowerment of each individual human spirit, the same is becoming more sexy. It's becoming more interesting to be with someone who is more similar to you, because you understand what it's like to be like that, and you can relate a lot easier together.
Resonance. And
there's more resonance depending on what the resonance is. It's like if I don't have any idea what it's like to be a manifesting generator, although it really lights me up and I really enjoy being with that, but understanding what it's like when that happens is like, I don't know where that came from, and I don't understand it. But being with a projector, just in conversation, when there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to go, we can have endless conversations and just like theorize about the world forever. That's comfortable. It's easy. It's nice. You don't get as surprised and as jerked around in the experience. But sometimes that learning experience in between is part of the journey of what we're here to learn. In work environments, of course, it's like projector generator. It's nice to have a generator on the team. If you have a lot of visions and a lot of ideas, if you have an energy that really loves all those ideas and wants to put energy behind it, woohoo! It's amazing. And And I'm not sure that it's the most ideal romantic relationship that is out there, but there's so much to learn within that relationship when they do happen. That would be my deeper answer, and I have a lot more rabbit holes to go into. This has been my lived experience for 20 plus years of studying and understanding and testing and trialing. So in that, I've gone into so many rabbit holes, genetics and PHS and all of these different areas. So if there's any of you that want to go deeper dives in any of these areas, I'm happy to do that at length in other conversations. And then also just kind of a little promo on the Human Design New Year. I am hosting a Human Experiential Way retreat starting on the 21st of January in Nusa Penida at a place called Intaya that we have just opened last October, which is a beautiful off-grid eco resort on the cliffs of Diamond Beach. That I will put out information about that soon if any of you are interested in that. And maybe Travis will join me. We're not sure yet. We're still discussing it. I haven't given him a proper invitation yet. So this is one thing that we can answer some more questions, but I feel like it's really an interesting topic to share a little bit about the subject of invitations and what different invitations look like, how you understand if an invitation is correct for you, the verbal invitations versus just energetic invitations. And I'd love to get into that a little bit.
Seems like probably the most confusing thing for projectors. Because one moment Ross says life invites you, and then the next moment he's like, you need a written, very specific formal invitation from this person. I was a 1-3. I learned by, I guess, not being invited and still doing it anyways. It's been, in retrospect, really obvious when I wasn't invited, but I don't think I would have known unless I did it anyways and realized by the trial and error that it didn't work out. My biggest fear for projectors is that they take waiting for the invitation and they use it as a way to limit themselves or not do something that they really would love to do. And I think that's much more common to hide behind it than if you're not quite sure, fuck around and find out. Speaking from experience, there's been many opportunities where I've decided, oh, there's no invitation there, and it was a mental construct that I had created to stay hidden. Back to your 4426 question, yeah, easy to hide behind it. When I feel it now, it's almost like I think like correct decisions don't feel like a decision, because what I think or know what a decision is a mental decision. I don't know decision from the body. To me, when that happens, it's like I'm already there. It's like I didn't decide. My invitation to come to Bali, a woman just said, hey, what do you think about Bali? And my whole body got chills. I got tears. I got a feeling of I'm already in Bali. It wasn't a mental construct of so to me, it's probably not what I think it is. It's more of something that's felt, and maybe if I'm thinking about it, it's not. It's already a no, possibly. Again, probably my unsatisfying answer, but it's. I mean, when you look at authority, your inner authority, it's like a decision I've never made before, because I was always making mental decisions. So to me, authority is everything's about movement. Everything's about, every decision we make is navigation. Ra always talks about every decision I make, I'm going in a different direction. I'm either aligning more or I'm heading down the wrong path, whatever it is. But if I'm not doing, if I'm a projector saying I'm going to sit in my house and not do anything until an invitation comes, there's nothing for my spleen to really grab onto. If I walk out the door and take a walk, now things are moving. It can start to guide me in a better way. So I think my 1-3 answer is start walking, go, and then the invitation will come or it won't come. But I'm not being stagnant in my life. I'm still very much living it. And I think people can really get stuck on having to make all correct decisions. And if you don't make one, then what? So what? You don't think if I make one bad decision, there's not going to be another opportunity to make the right one the next time? It's like people getting really fixated on correctness or not correctness. Mine is start walking and learn as you go, and the invitations become more clear the more sensitive I get to my body's responses.
You ever felt like validation needed? A need for validation, something like that?
About a splenic response or about a...
About their splenics, about your life as a projector, like to be able to like I need a validation
all the time.
no.
All the time.
All the time. Even though
Every
you
day.
have
Yeah, it's my mind still wants it. To me, it's not. To me, I used to think like you would get rid of it. I would get rid of the voice that doesn't like me. I'd get rid of the depression. I'd get rid of the bad moods. It's not how it happens for me. It's just I don't let that make my decisions anymore. When my body lights up to go to Bali and my mind's like, wow, I was not planning to come to Bali. This was not part of your plan. Instantly start to rationalize it away. It's still there, but I bought the ticket and left 2 days later because that's what I'm allowing to make my decisions now. But there's no rationalization for it. It's really terrifying. It's you want that. The mind wants the certainty that it's going to work out, or that it's going to be a way that it thinks it needs to be. And I think maybe invitation is so important with people.
With others.
With other people.
Mm-hmm.
Are they, again, back to the discernment, are they correct for me or not? And I think it's much easier to recognize that now if the invitation's there. When I got the invitation to come do this, she said, it was day 2 of me being in Bali. Hey, Travis, we see that you're in Bali. We would love to invite you to speak for Human Design Indonesia. Kita's going to offer us his temple. We're going to sell the tickets for you. We'll have food. And I'm like, talk about an invitation, and you have a really amazing take on this that you can speak about of everything was taken care of. There was nothing expected of me that I'm going to need to do anything or bring energy that I didn't have. It was like, I felt so seen and so recognized and so comfortable to just come and be me. That's what projectors want.
Yeah.
That's all I want. I want to show up and speak and have fun and meet amazing people. I don't, if I didn't have the energy to do everything else.
Yeah, the paradox is like the projector, they started to need something from outside first, and then they started to understand themselves. So it becomes the other around, and that makes the projector feels unsuccessful.
Sure. And that's why I think you really have to start walking first. Who am I? This is generator spirituality. How many projectors are caught up in the who am I trip doing, the inward meditations. And, I meditate and that's great. But I've learned about who I am from other people reflecting back to me through invitation. I didn't know what people wanted from me until I've done hundreds of readings and there's a similar theme that keeps coming to me. For the readings, there's my 4426. Oh, there's my 5125. Oh, wow, I'm really good at getting people to quit their jobs. It's been, people want to bring me into their business to reorganize it. I'm like, bro, you don't want to take me into your business. I'm going to get half of your staff to quit. Like that's what my energy wants to do, but I didn't know how that worked until I started to receive those invitations and in the other start to recognize myself, what people are wanting from me and what I'm really, really good at. I think every girlfriend I've had the last 8 years has quit their job and started some entrepreneurial venture that's been very successful, but it was so difficult for them to take that leap. So, yeah. Yeah.
So now you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur, business, like entrepreneur. How are you?
Natural entrepreneur, 44, 26. I started a projector community called the Projector Lounge. That's been my very recent endeavor. But as a 1-3 and in business, in any business, I think the wisdom is how fast can you fail? How fast can you fail? Because once you fail at something or it doesn't work out, I know why. I can adapt and try something else. But I didn't waste all my time trying to make it work when it wasn't meant to work that way. But if I didn't start, I would have never known in the first place. So it's again, back to so many people get stuck with it's got to be perfect now, or am I going to be recognized? Am I not? Or all these mental questions of needing it to be a certain way. The beauty of my design is you just jump, you just go.
Because you 1 and 3, so it's kind of combined.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. Investigate, like Ito was saying, do it first. Well, you got to have a little bit of something to stand on, but then that third line comes around and says, it's not quite like that. We're going to shift here. We're going to adjust a little bit. But 1-3, I feel for the 2-4s. Profile is hilarious when you look at the juxtaposition of it. It's a joke. It's like a cosmic joke. It's funny to me.
For the projector, the more you appreciate yourself, the more people appreciate you.
Totally.
For sure.
Totally.
100%.
That goes with everyone.
That's a good springboard into I have 2 questions, but
I'm aware that you were going to say something about invitation.
I can still, for sure. Easy.
There's so much talk these days about self-resourcing, and looking to the external world and needing something from somebody, and then realizing that actually you need to give that to yourself. And I wonder if you guys can kind of contrast the experience with the defined ego center and the undefined. Where does that land for you? If that makes that question.
Of self-sourcing, you mean? Of the ability to have the capability to self-source?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like what you're sharing is a reflection of, we hear a lot about through this knowledge that this is self-reflective consciousness. And the self-reflective consciousness is often meant to be self-corrective, so we can self-correct what we're seeing in the reflection. And so much of our current social milieu is pointing fingers to what we see as not correct and trying to fix it out there, rather than seeing the reflection of what we're seeing and realize that somehow we're resonating that into our field. And if we can self-correct whatever has brought that into the field and just attune that energy, then whatever we start seeing in our field starts to become different. In the field of self-sourcing, I feel this is a projector dilemma and as a whole, because yes, of course, we have the energy to generate inconsistently, but when we get into that cycle of thinking that we can do it all alone and we have to source it within, that's where we start to become these doers and start to becoming in the doing mentality, and we get out more of the being. And I feel like this has so much to do with invitations, because the invitations really are, it's not a passive waiting. It's not something we're just waiting on the couch and I'm waiting for somebody to tell me to go pee, because my body knows when that needs to happen, but we're focusing on what we love to focus on in that time, which is kind of like sharpening our sword of understanding of what we bring to awareness. so that when we're in whatever place we are and somebody is witnessing, it's like, wow, that knife is really sharp. What can it cut? And then it's like, then they want to see what you've been focusing on can be applied. Or often a lot of times the projector is seen as a light bulb or a lighthouse, and we love to focus on very specific things. For each of us, it's a little bit different. But wherever that focus is, that's what our tool of awareness is. That's where we've been looking for a long time. We understand that. And the more that we focus on that and people see that we've been focusing on that, they want to know, or they want to go in that same direction. And they kind of want you to be a guide for them. So the invitation, coming back to invitation, is like when you've been asked to guide a trip into the jungle, and someone is following you, but every time you're going there, they're saying, hey, can you step different? Or can you turn your music down? Or can you do that? You're kind of like, yeah, I can, but that might not be a really accurate invitation. It's like, maybe you need to find another guide, because this is the way I walk through the jungle. And so it's like starting to attune with that, because an invitation, first of all, projectors, because we have such a, how to say, a focus in our intellectual processes on the systems, we can see what people want and need. We have, in our young ages, we learn how to manipulate and how to show people or be recognized, because we know what I can recognize what you need and I can show you what you need. So that's going to give me energy. So that this is like when Ra used to say, is if a projector is offering you an invitation, be careful, because it's like a fisherman going into a lake with a worm as its invitation. He wants to eat you. He wants something from you. But when you're waiting for the invitation and energy is saying, hey, I really love the way you're focused, and I'm opening up my energy to give you energy to power your light more. And so it's like the energy is like a battery that makes that light shine. But sometimes you can see when there's a battery that comes in that's really charged and your light starts shorting out because it's too much energy, you blow a lot of light bulbs. And so I'm saying this because this becomes like a multiple lens of understanding which invitations are correct. Who's really recognizing you for who you are and what you really like to focus on, or who is projecting on you what they think they can get from you, and how you can sometimes become the lucky rabbit's foot or the teddy bear that they just want to hug because you give them attention. So there's so many variables and so many ways that even in the design language, when people understand that projectors need invitations, how even that gets manipulated and say, I'm inviting you to do this, please, I'm inviting you to do this. And then when we say no to the invitation, there's a reaction. And it's like, I'm not saying no to you. I'm just saying no because it doesn't feel correct for me. And so one of the things I remember so deeply that Alok was sharing me early on was that a true invitation, you can say yes or no and there's no consequences. And it's like, yes, the universe can still give you an invitation, but it usually provides that as an energy stream that you can just step into and just go. And you don't have to, yes, like Travis said, you can get up and start walking. But if you get up and start walking and there's resistance and you have to keep on resisting in that walk, it's like maybe you need to shift directions of how you're walking. And one of the things I shared earlier is the difference between the body and the personality in these red and black designs is if we see the body as the hardware or the computer or the form or the yin structure, and the personality as the yang software operating system, and they're both operating at a little different frequency, and they create this magnetic monopole as they seat in our G center. That creates a field of energy that pulls us through life. And when we're getting pulled on that natural fractal of life and it's all easy and it's chill and we're like, woohoo, this is amazing, that's usually a sign that we are living our design. We're in our true resonance and we're flowing. And the moments we start feeling and we're getting off track and this doesn't feel good and like, that's usually a sign that the mind is trying to drive on its trajectory. Trying to drive off the road. So these are where these like signatures come in, not self-signatures, true self-signatures. Is when we feel success, it means like we feel that essence that we have been invited, whether it's by life or by a partner or by a cat or whatever it is, and we don't have to exert so much energy into making that happen. We can just go and continue to be. And this is also one of the things that Ross said, is like when we are in that natural flow of where our G or where the driver is taking us, we meet very little resistance along the way, and we tend to look younger, we stay healthier, we have more vitality because we've been using all of that life force in a way that is correct.
Great. I, sure. No, just it's also that's a good segue into like this idea of decision making, and I hear you about going with the flow, and yeah, being a projector with a defined spleen and a defined solar plexus. Um, I'm hearing sort of like that in the moment, the truth with this with the defined spleen, and then the emotional authority is like, wait, the morning's wiser than the evening, and have your wave, and go on the roller coaster, and the clarity will appear, and it seems like having both a defined spleen and a defined emotional center, there's some kind of tension. And like, I had an experience recently where I got an invitation. My spleen was like, yes. My emotional center was like, wait. And I just kind of listened to my authority and waited, and eventually rode my wave and found, oh, actually, yeah, this is a no for me. Maybe if the invitation were a little different, I asked, hey, if it's like this, then okay, but and no reply. So I'm just wondering about like y'all's experience as projectors. I guess do you see that tension in your life, and maybe you have more of a instant answer. Is that accurate, or?
Emotional people want to be more spontaneous. Splenic people want to sit and think about it more. It's every session I've ever done, they're trying to be the opposite of what it is. So I really find themes of like just going kind of against the nature of who you are. Splenic people is scary to think about living your life that way. And the solar plexus, it gets so high. Of course, it's going to be a yes to this, right? It's just in a peak. So,
I would just share this from the emotional center. The emotional center is like a compost bin. It's receiving all of your experiential food that you've taken in, that you're digesting. And every time you make a spontaneous decision, you're adding more to that bucket of what it has to process before you've been able to digest and empty it. So the more spontaneous you are, the more chaos typically comes into your world that clouds things a little bit to not be able to understand. You also have a defined ego, so that's another pressure. You have another motor. You don't have a defined ego? You don't have the 2644? Heart?
Will.
Yes. So you have another motor in there that's also pumping. So the heart is a pump, the solar plexus is a pump, and the root is a pump. So you have a lot of pressure that's trying to get you to make a decision in the moment. It's like going, trying to get you to process it through. And one of the questions you asked earlier is about the ways of, yes, all that pressure is in your system, how to get that pressure out so that you're not making your decisions based on that pressure, but that you're making the decision based on your awareness. Because this is the gift that we as projectors have, is awareness. This is the channels that make a projector. Projector are the awareness channels. And to remember also, like in the decision making, all we're doing is having more awareness. It's not like we made the right decision and it's going to make the whole world better and it's going to make us better. It might feel like that in a minute, but a month later, we can see how that situation got us into a much deeper, like, whoa, and understand the complexity of all these pieces, which is really just our complex way of creating this illusion of life and having this experience. So I don't know how to really definitively answer that question other than wait. And it's not a passive waiting, but it's sometimes in that decision, maybe wait to digest that information more, or wait to understand what it's like. Alok shares like the bubbles in the jacuzzi that come up from the emotions. It's like, maybe you don't have it, but that one day that popped and it was like, whoa, that's a big piece, because the emotions are like deep diving for pearls. And you only have like 20% time to catch that breath from the deep dive of clarity before you go back down again to understand more where those pearls are. So like clarity might be there kind of in a moment, but it's hard to really bet on that clarity for any length of time.
Locke said two things to me that really stuck. One was he said when he found out his design and about his defined solar plexus, he knew he was going to die working on his patience. It's going to be a never ending thing for me. I will never be patient enough. I'm going to die working on it. And then number two, he said, no matter what happens, keep a sense of humor. And I think that's maybe the best advice he ever
number three, he would say the only reward for patience is patience.
Yeah, deep guy though. The depth of that center.
Just about relieving that pressure. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit more? I didn't quite understand.
First is breath.
I think we got to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll cover a couple of things, and I think Ronaldo has a question before we go in. But like the first is breath and getting into your body, because if when you wake up and you have all that pressure in your body, the first place it goes to all your open centers, and your mind will stay in those open centers and just keep on processing that pressure. But the moment you step into your body and actually start living outside of the mind, in the body, breathing, exercise, walking, whatever those pieces are, these are all places to relieve the pressure. And I could go into many more things, but I'm happy to talk after this and go into deeper sessions if you want to, but I'd love to pass it on to Ronaldo if you have something.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, okay.
We have 5 minutes left. Maybe some kind of like final closure from Kita and Travis for the session. Anything that you want to share in the final moments of our meetings today? Would be nice, would be great. And then if there's anyone participants that want to directly ask Kita or directly ask Travis, please do so. While there's a slide in the back as well. Yeah, so please, Kita and Travis.
Travis, you feel any closure?
I guess I'll just say, one gate can express itself in over 1,080 different ways that we know about. Then you look at a design, how many gates do we have? Okay, then we have the centers, then we have the channels, then we have the profile, there's so much in design. It's endlessly fascinating and interesting. To me, what that really says is how incompetent I am trying to figure any of this stuff out, or why it is the way that it is. Is it my spleen? Is it my, how could I possibly comprehend the inner workings of a holistic being that we are? It's just beyond my ability to comprehend. And the only thing I think that really measures the beauty of design is, do I feel more alive every day? Do I feel more recognized in my life? Is it correct or not? How do I know that? It's by the way that I get to witness my life unfold. And to me, that's why I do this. I like the other stuff. I really do, but I think you can easily get caught there. And so I would say now is a good time to jump, to bet everything you've got on yourself and your inner truth, and really go for it. We all are here to love ourselves and then share that uniquely through our definition with everybody else around us. So 2027 is upon us. I think now's a good time. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me and all the beautiful questions and all the beautiful smiles and faces. And yeah, this has been incredible. I feel so welcome to Bali. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming
Keita.
in that. I think one of these pieces for me, just to close, is just that remember that we're not doing any of this, it's doing us. And the more that we can come into a place of acceptance, and first of acceptance, who we are, how we are, in as we are now, rather than all the places that we think we need to be, or it needs to be different, or we need to change it, or we need to go into those places. This is the place of self-acceptance and acceptance of everything that's happening around us that we don't need to change. That we do have the ability to just shift the narrator that's inside, and to start watching how the narrator starts telling the story and telling us what is happening and telling us the absolute of the truth of the moment. And all it really takes many times is a deep breath and the ability to pivot that narrator's voice to look at it from a different perspective and understand that everything can shift in one moment just by the way that we look at things. Really appreciate all of you, and thank you, Human Design Indonesia, for bringing this together. And I really would love to continue these conversations. And Travis and I have been talking about possibility of using this space for Projectors Lounge or for other pieces that can come together. And look forward to watching the movie.
Okay, thank you so much, Kita.
Thank you, Gachokti.
Thank you so much.
Wrap up and then let's do some pictures together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.